This happened in the fall of 2021. I had just gone through a rough breakup, and I thought the silence and solitude of living alone might help me process everything. I was 27 with a full-time job and a stable routine, but moving into that rented townhouse in southern Illinois was my first time ever truly living by myself. Even with the stability, I had a lot of nerves about the idea. The townhouse was part of a small row of identical units, tucked away in a sleepy cul-de-sac. The neighborhood had that sterile suburban vibe, beige vinyl siding, trimmed hedges, and mailboxes with family names stenciled on them. I didn't know any of my neighbors well, but I liked it that way. I kept to myself. But almost right away, I noticed one person who stood out. He lived 3 doors down, a tall, heavy-set man, probably in his mid-40s, with a scruffy beard and a weird habit of standing outside his house at night. Sometimes just pacing or smoking, sometimes doing nothing at all, just staring. I'd pull into my driveway after work around 9 or 10 p.m, and there he'd be, leaning against his porch rail or standing at the edge of his driveway facing the street. He never waved, never smiled. He just stared, even if I looked directly at him. I tried to ignore it. Friends and family suggested he was just a night owl, but there was something profoundly unsettling about him. It wasn't just that he was there, it was the stillness. He didn't fidget or check his phone or shift his weight. He just stood there like a statue, perfectly motionless, his eyes tracking my movements as I went from my car to my front door. I told myself not to be paranoid, but the more time passed, the more that gnawing feeling in my gut grew. It was like an itch I couldn't scratch, a voice in the back of my head telling me something was wrong. Then the noises started. It was around mid-September when I first heard it. I worked late hours and I usually got in around 10:30 p.m, exhausted. That night, I fell asleep around midnight. At exactly 2:37 a.m, I woke up to a sound I can only describe as metal scraping against wood. At first, I thought I had dreamed it, but then I heard it again. A long, slow, creaking noise like an old gate opening. My bedroom was on the first floor at the back of the unit, and I had a sliding glass door that led to a small fenced-in backyard. I sat up in bed, heart racing, and listened. There was a pause. Then I heard footsteps, soft crunching sounds like someone walking slowly across gravel. My entire backyard was lined with decorative rock instead of grass, so you could hear every footstep clearly. These weren't animal sounds, I could feel it in my bones. Someone was out there. I grabbed my phone with trembling hands and crept out of bed. I crouched by the edge of the window and peeked through the blinds. I couldn't see anything. The motion light wasn't on. My mouth went dry. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst out of my chest. I dialed 911. The dispatcher was calm, asked for my address, and told me officers were en route. I stayed crouched in the dark, barely breathing, listening to every sound outside. About 10 minutes later, red and blue lights flickered through my front window. I met the 2 officers outside and explained everything. One walked around the back while the other stayed with me. The officer in the yard came back and said the gate was closed and there were no signs of tampering. They didn't see anyone, no footprints, no damage, basically no crime. One of them actually said probably just a raccoon, and gave me a look that clearly said, "You're wasting our time." I didn't argue. They left after about 10 minutes. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. The next morning, I went outside to check the backyard myself. That's when I noticed something strange. There was a flat stone about the size of a paperback book wedged under the bottom edge of the wooden fence gate. The gate had a heavy spring that made it swing closed automatically, but the stone looked like it had been placed there specifically to stop it from closing all the way. It was subtle, like something someone would do if they wanted to come back later and slip in without making noise. My blood ran cold. This wasn't an animal. This was intentional. This was planned. I picked up the rock and tossed it across the yard. I called the police again. They told me they'd noted in the report, but again said there wasn't much they could do. I felt like I was losing my mind. 2 nights later, it escalated. At exactly 2:14 at.AM, I woke up again, this time to the sound of my back door handle turning. The handle rattled gently at first, like someone testing it, then a harder jiggle, like someone trying to open it. I sat up in bed, heart hammering in my chest. I couldn't see anything through the blinds, but I could feel someone standing on the other side. My mouth went dry. I picked up my phone with shaking hands and called the police again. While I waited, I crouched in the hallway out of view. My motion light clicked on, and through a tiny gap in the blinds, I saw a shadow move across the window. It was a man. He didn't run or try to hide. He just stood there staring at my door like he was trying to will it open. The same 2 officers showed up again. This time they actually found footprints in the gravel. Big ones heading right up to the door, but again they said since no entry had been made, there wasn't enough to go on. They promised to patrol the area more often and told me to keep my doors locked. I felt abandoned. I felt exposed. I felt like the system was failing me. The next day, I installed cameras. I set one up above the back door and another above the front porch. That night, I didn't go to bed. I sat in the living room with the lights off, watching the live feed on my phone. 2:14 at.AM came and went. Nothing happened. Then at 2:23, the back camera triggered. A man stepped into frame. He walked in through the gate like he knew exactly how to move to avoid the motion sensor until the last second. He was tall and broad, wearing a black hoodie with the hood up, jeans and gloves. He walked up to the door, looked up directly at the camera and smiled. A slow, stretched-out grin that made my skin crawl. Then he backed up, still staring, and disappeared into the dark. I called the police again and they came back, watched the clip, and admitted that yes, it was unsettling. But since he didn't break in, didn't damage property, and didn't appear to be armed, there was still allegedly nothing they could do. They wouldn't even ask the guy down the street to check his doorbell cam. I begged them. They said their hands were tied. That night, I packed a bag and slept at a hotel. When I came back the next day, I found 4 muddy handprints on the glass door. 2 high up and 2 low, like someone had crouched down and just rested their hands there for a while, staring in. Studying the glass, trying to see through. I moved out a week later. I broke my lease and forfeited my deposit. I didn't care. I couldn't stay there another night. The final straw was the note I found wedged in my mailbox the day I left. It was handwritten in small, cramped letters on lined notebook paper. It said, "The cops leave, but I don't." Those words still haunt me. I filed one last report. The officer I spoke to that time looked genuinely disturbed by the note. He promised they'd do a wellness check on the neighborhood, but it was too late. I never went back. About a month later, I got a message on Facebook from a girl named Kayla. She said she was the new tenant who had moved into the unit after me. Her message said, "Hi, sorry to bother you. I think you used to live here. Did you ever have someone in a black hoodie hanging around the backyard? I keep hearing footsteps at night, and last night, someone knocked on the glass door around 2 at.AM and just stood there." I didn't reply. I didn't want to know what happened next.